Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to today's Just2easy webinar. Today we're going to be having a think about using J2E in your teaching of the arts. I'm just going to minimize that. My name's Charlie White and I'm one of the educational consultants here at J2E. A little bit about me just for context before we start. I trained to teach in 2012. I taught for a few years in a mainstream primary school. I moved to teach in a school for children with social, emotional, mental health needs. And then I did a few years supply across the kind of primary age range before I came to work at J2E when I had my daughter a few years ago. And then when Nikki Kimball, for those of you who met her, went on her maternity leave, I took over some of her jobs, including these webinars that we're really proud to present in conjunction with C2K. A little bit of housekeeping before we start. We're scheduled for a 4:30 finish today, a couple of minutes late starting, but I think it'll probably still be about the same. Should be a roughly 40-minute webinar with a few minutes for questions at the end if you have any. You're going to be muted today, your video and your sound, but please feel free to ask questions if you have any anyway. There'll be time to ask questions at the end and you can unmute if you want to, that's fine. But as we go through, if you want to ask questions via the chat, we've got Sophie in the background today. She is our office manager and she will be able to answer any questions that you might have as we're going along, so just direct message Just2easy support. Today's session is going to be recorded, so I'm going to try and throw at you as many ideas as I can. If you want to go back through it at your own pace, just give us a couple of days and it will be here. So just for explanation, there are two Just2easy websites. We have j2e.com, which is where one of the places you can find the tools. And we have just2easy.com, which is the main kind of company website. And if you go to just2easy.com, find the news tab and look for this tile here, you'll be able to do two things. First of all, you'll be able to view all the previous webinars, including today's in a couple of days' time. So that includes all the introductory webinars and all of the webinars that have looked at the other areas of learning within the Northern Ireland curriculum. They're there too to have a look at your leisure. And you can also book onto, we have one remaining webinar, which is going to be next Tuesday. So if you enjoy today, please do have a look at next week's webinar. I try never to repeat anything, so you should still get lots of good ideas if you wanted to come along to that too. So today's session, I've split the activities into two. We're going to look at creating art, so art that your children can create using the J2E tools. And then we're going to look at exhibiting and evaluating art that's been created elsewhere. As usual, I'll show you where you can access further support and there'll be time for questions at the end if you have any. So without further ado, we're going to start by looking at art that you can create using the Just2easy Infant Toolkit, or JIT. Now, JIT can be found on your Launchpad or on your children's Launchpad. So I'm going to take you to my demo pupil. And on his Launchpad, you will see JIT is this orange tile. Now, JIT is made up of 8 different tools, which you can see along this toolbar at the top right-hand side here. We go straight into JIT Write, but we're going to start off today with Jit Paint, which is our tool for creating pictures. Its primary use is going to be getting your youngest learners to start creating art on the computer. As with any other tool in JIT, you get this box when you first open it up, which allows you to select an image for the background. So we have a number of templates, or you can click on the Pictures tab to load up anything that is in your My Files or anything that's been shared with you, or even do a safe web search there. So I'm going to create a Christmassy picture to start off with. So I'm going to load this picture from my My Files, and you can see it just nicely loads onto the background. And then I have this toolbar on the left, which allows me to create my picture. So I've got a fill tool I can use. So I could fill in the bottom of my picture black just to complete that silhouette. I could do some painting on here, or I could stamp some images up here where this reindeer is. If I click on the word Christmas, it takes me into my image library. So there's an image library, first of all, with all sorts of different categories of pictures. Or again, we can see anything in our My Files. Or do a web search. So if I look in my My Files, I've got all sorts of different pictures that I'm going to use. Before I do that though, I want to fill in the background of my picture, and there's a really lovely tool for this here, which is like a texture pattern tool. If you see just here underneath the colours, it looks like a little bit of grass, and if I click on that, oh my computer, there we go. We've got all these different patterns that we can paint or fill onto our picture. So I like this one here, which looks a bit like a starry sky, and I can just fill that in because my background is white. It's a really nice little tool for children to use to get easily get a nice effect on their picture. If I now go back to my stamping, I can choose some of these pictures. I might stamp on a moon. I've got this lovely picture of Santa and his reindeer. With any of my pictures, I have the option to reverse them and to resize them. I can stamp that on there. Then I'm going to finish off my picture with just a little bit of painting. I'm going to choose a red colour for Rudolph's nose. I'm going to just paint that on here. So you can see children can really easily create lovely looking images there. And when they've finished, what they can do is they can give it a name. So we could call this Santa Scene. They can additionally record some sound if they wanted to do that with this microphone button here. They could talk about the picture that they've done. So they, for instance, might say, I used stamping to create my Santa scene. And that will add that to that page. Obviously, your children might take a little bit more time over that. When they've completely finished, they can save. And children have 3 different ways of saving here. They can save up on the top left in this orange circle, allows them to save this picture as a working document. Additionally, the top right hand side of the picture itself, they can save the image either as a stamp or as an image. So particularly for a picture like this, saving as an image would be really lovely because I could use it in other tools within J2E. So J2E5, for instance, I could then load that up. Children who are perhaps a bit older who'd created an image could then put that into J2E5 and write about it, that kind of thing. But regardless, however the children choose to save, it will save this piece of work into 2 places. It will save it into the child's My Files area, and as their teacher, it will save it into the pupils files section of My Files. So I have access to all the work that my children create and save to. Next activity I'm going to show you within Jit Paint is going to be one that I'm going to create for my children. So I'll get rid of that now, and I'll come back to my Launchpad. I'm going to create a colouring sheet for my children in Jit Paint. And this is really simple to do. All I'm going to do is load as a background my colouring sheet. I'm just going to scroll down and find it through here. And I'll add this as the background and share it with my children so they can then work on it. There it is. So I've loaded that as a background. This is really useful for children who are younger and just getting used to this, because I could call it Apple Colouring. Save that. Once I've saved it, it will be in My Files. There it is. And if I click on the little green eye that appears when I hover over that piece of work, I have the option to share that with my children, so I can share that with my class. If I take you back to my demo pupil, he can now find it within his My Files. On the left, he has a shared files area, and he can find that colouring and he can work on that. He can use all of those tools that we just talked about to complete that picture. Now, the slightly easier way of doing that, if once my children are a little bit older and a bit more used to Jit Paint, is I could simply have shared the image with them and they could have loaded that as their background when they came into Jit Paint. That would work too. And that way I could just give them one picture like this, or I could share with them lots of pictures. They've got a little library of colouring sheets that they can complete and choose from. So a couple of different ways to do that. And the last thing I'm going to show you within Jit Paint is, I'm going to start a new one, is a way of using this tool for probably slightly older children to remove the background on an image on maybe a photograph that they've taken or an image that they found. This is really useful if they want to create maybe a character that they can stamp into pictures, or in this case, we're going to use it as a character in an animation in a little bit. To remove the background from a picture, first of all, when I choose my background, I need to choose the transparent background. This is in the templates box right at the bottom. This means that when I erase, it erases to transparent rather than just turning white. So it will help me create my character. I'm now going to stamp onto this a picture. So in this picture library on the left, it's a picture I've taken of myself sitting in a strange position, which will become clear why shortly. So I'm going to stamp this on to the page. And I'm now going to erase my background. Let's just make that a bit smaller so I can see. And the rubber is this button here. It's got an orange circle and it's got like a little pink and blue rubber inside it. I can fill erase. Obviously with this particular picture I've got, it's quite a complicated picture, so that the filling isn't going to help. If you wanted to make this task a bit quicker and easier for your children, if you got them to take their photograph in front of a plain background, they would be able to fill erase. But we can paint instead. It would just be a bit more time consuming, so I can get rid of all that background. And because it takes a little bit of time to do this really accurately, I won't finish that off now. I will do a bit of a here's one I made earlier to show you what that looks like when we finished. And it would look like this. So we can completely get rid of all of that background so that we're left with just the bit that we want. And we can now use that. As I said, you could use it in a picture like we've just created. What we're going to do is we're going to move into a different tool within Jit, and I'm going to use this stamp that I've created and saved up here. We're going to use in an animation. So I'm going to move now to Jit Animate, which is the pink, I should move this out of the way, the pink tab in my toolbar on the top right. And Jit Animate is our stop frame animation tool. It's a really, really lovely one. Children have a lot of fun using this. We can use it to create all sorts of different animations. In the World Around Us webinar that I did, I showed a snowy day animation that's really simple for children as young as foundation stage. Feel free to go back and have a look at that if you missed that one. But the one I'm going to look at today is going to be a little bit more complicated. Just to give you kind of a flavour of how Jit Animate can work. So I'm going to open up an animation that I've already started. Again, this is quite a time-consuming thing for children to do it really well. So I've already started this, and I'll just finish it off to show you how I've done it. At the bottom of the picture here, we've got a play button. So I'll press that just to show you what I've already created. And what I've done is I've got myself, let's slow that down a bit, sledging down the hill. And I want to make myself crash into the snowman. I'm just going to slow it down a bit more. Our speed button for our animation is just this green slidey bar at the bottom. So we can make that a bit slower. There we go. Now, the way that I've created this is, first of all, in this black box at the bottom of the screen, that's our background box. So I loaded into that this Christmas scene. Then on the first frame, I painted in my snowman. And before I did anything else, before I added myself on the sledge, what I did was I copied that frame with the snowman in it lots and lots of times. And I did that by pressing the red plus. That adds a new frame which contains everything that the previous frame did. And I did that so that my snowman would stay in exactly the same place. And then I could then go back and add in myself on the sledge, moving a little bit every time. So each frame, I moved myself on the sledge down a little bit further down the hill towards the snowman, and I kept doing that. And every so often I made the sledge and myself a little bit bigger using these tools on the left by the picture, just to give the illusion that I was getting a little bit closer. And I've come to the point where I want my my sledge to crash into my snowman a little bit. So I'll just show you how I've done that one last time. So I come into my stamps, and there is my sledge. I can resize that to make it the same size that it was the last time. And I can move that just a little bit nearer, crashing into the snowman. And then I can put myself on that. can see it does take a little bit of time, but the end result can be really, really effective. And then I want to make the sledge really crash into the snowman. And to do that, I want to have the snowman fall over. So instead of pressing the red plus button to make my next frame, I'm going to press the green plus button. That allows me to copy just the background with nothing in it. But what it will do is it shows me like a ghost of where the images were in the previous frame. This is a technique called onion skinning, and it means that I can see where the images were and where I want them to be this time. So I can pop my sledge on again, but this time a little bit further down again. And I can pop myself on again, but this time perhaps coming off the back of the sledge a little bit. Then I can start to draw my snowman starting to fall over a bit. And again, because I've got that onion skin, it's really easy to make sure that the blobs and the pictures are all the same size, just in a different place. I can pop in his eyes, maybe a bit wonky this time, and his nose. And I can stamp on his accessories. Again, really easy to resize them and flip them around. Make him start to look a little bit sorry for himself. And then I'm going to do one more frame. So again, I'm going to click that green plus button. And again, I can see just the previous few frames where everything was. So again, I can pop my sledge on. And this time I can make sure that I've really fallen off the sledge. And this time my snowman can be a real mess. But still keeping kind of in relation to where he was before. And then what we can do when we've done all of these is play it again. So we've got last couple of bits to add in, so we'll add in his arms. Maybe he's lost one arm this time. And then the very last thing I do before I play it again is what I'm going to do is just press the red plus button to copy this last image several times so that we get a pause effect at the end. And I'll play that now. So I can go back and I can edit it if I'm not happy. So I'll press that a few more times. I think to really make the impact, what I might like to do is add in some kind of snow splashing out as I crash in. And I might also add in an extra frame here, and children can play around with this and really have a look and see what they want to do to make this work. So if we play that again, maybe make that a little bit slower this time. So time consuming, but we can create some really nice effects with that. Again, we have the same options to be able to save it as a working document, to be able to save as a GIF this time or as a stamp. As with anything else in J2E, children can press the button to the right of the save button to publish this. That will push it towards the class blog. I will have to moderate that first as a teacher. So you've got that as kind of as a safeguard. But a really nice activity here for children to put themselves into the centre of a story that they can create. What I'm just going to show you before we move on is a couple more animations that have been created in Jit Animate, just to give you an idea of the kind of thing that can be done, because it really has a lot of variety of the activities that you can create within Jit Animate. So this one here is the Titanic sinking, that's just been created by lots of different images created in Jit Paint. This one is different again. What I've done here is I've added an additional music note on each frame, and I used that red plus button to copy, so that I kept hold of the images that were already there and just added one each time. So both completely different to what we've just done. Lots and lots of versatility what you can create in Animate. I'm going to move on now to looking at art that you can create using other J2E tools. And I'm going to start with an activity I've created for younger children, sort of foundation stage age. Now I've created it in J2E5. Now J2E5 is like a blank piece of paper, and it's usually for children, in terms of children using it, we'd be looking at probably upper key stage 1, key stage 2. But for children younger than that, we can still get a lot of use out of it by creating the activities for our children to use, and then either displaying them on the whiteboard or sharing it with them. So if I click on this red open folder load button, I'll just open it up, this that I've created here. All I've done, made my page horizontal at the bottom, and I've drawn some different shapes in different colours. And I want my children to use these as building blocks, really, to create pictures. And to allow them to do this, what I'm going to do, I'm going to select all of them. I'm going to click on this details button. It looks like 4 arrows pointing in opposite directions in the bottom right hand corner. This allows me to do certain things to the pictures. One of the things it allows me to do, if I click this button here next to where it says copies, in view mode now, if my children click on those, it will create a copy, and that will do that as many times as they want to. So we'll just show you how that works. If we go into view mode at the top here, children can now drag those as many times as they want, and they can use those as building blocks to create pictures. So just another way to get your youngest learners starting to create art on the computer. This could be displayed on the whiteboard, maybe during free flow time, or it could be something you share with your children. You would do that by saving here and then clicking on these 2 purple people to share with your class. That would work too. Get rid of that now. Next thing I'm going to show you is the camera. Camera is this green tile here. Now it's not going to work completely properly because my camera is using Zoom. When you open this up normally, it would allow you to take a photograph using the device that you're using. Just to show you how it works, I will load up a photograph that I've already got, because what we can do to those photographs is we can add filters. Children can add filters to them, and all these filters on the right. An important thing to note is that what it will do is layer filters over the top of each other by default. That's really great because it allows children to kind of create their own filters by mixing some different ones. But if children don't like a particular filter, it's just going to keep layering on top. So what they'll need to do is click the undo button to their picture, and that will take them back to their photograph, or take them back one filter so that they can remove the one that they don't like. Now we can then save that image with the filter using this button here. That will save it as an image into their My Files, so it can be used elsewhere. And we can use those pictures to create art. So for instance, if I come back to my image, if I was to add a black and white filter and then I save that, I could use this image now to create some pop art imagery. And I would do that like this. We'll come out of the camera, and I'll start by going back into Jit and into Paint, and I'll start by loading that picture as my background. And I'm going to use the fill tool and ask my children to use the fill tool to fill in all the white on their picture, a colour of their choice. Now it's blurred a little bit because the shape of this one isn't quite right. If you take a photograph on the camera normally, it will be the right size. It's just because I've had to load one in. When they've done that, if they click to save it as an image on the top right hand side like we did earlier, Go. They can undo all that and do it again in a different colour. And they can do that several times. And when they're happy with it, they can come into J2E5. Because they saved it as an image, it will appear in the image library, which is at the top in the middle, this green button here. And they can load that onto the page. J2E5 is really lovely for creating art because there's no formatting issues, so we can drag anything anywhere, we can really easily resize, we can crop, so I can crop out the bits that I don't want. And I could load that image in the 4 different colours or however many different colours I've done it in to create an piece of art. And again, here's here's one I did earlier. Let's see if I can find it. Here we go. So we can get a really nice effect by taking that photograph with that filter on and adding lots of different colours and then adding those images into J2E5. I'm going to show you now a couple more pieces of artwork that have been created in J2E5. The first is some Mondrian inspired artwork. Again, because there are no formatting issues in J2E5, because it's so easy to move and to resize, this was not tricky to make. It's just some black lines and some coloured rectangles. And here I have created a collage. This is using some of the techniques we looked at earlier as well. So I took photographs, got photographs of 7 different leaves. I put them into Jit to remove the background on them, save those as images, loaded them into J2E5 and just copied them repeatedly to create what I think is a really effective looking collage. It took a long time, but I think it looks great at the end. And this is something children could really enjoy because they could choose the image and they could choose the picture that they made. It's just so easy to maneuver those pictures in J2E5 and to copy over and over again that you can create things that look really, really lovely. I'm going to move on now to the second part of this webinar. I hope that I've shown you that there are lots of different ways to create art within J2E, but we also fully appreciate that there's going to be an awful lot of art that you're going to do that is not going to be done in J2E. Obviously with art, you're going to create a lot of things that are nowhere near a computer at all. Equally, I know within the Northern Ireland curriculum, a lot of your art, particularly in Key Stage 2, requires some more specialist software. But what I'd like to show you is that J2E can still be a really great platform for exhibiting and evaluating that work that has been created elsewhere. It can be a really brilliant platform for showcasing in that way. And I'm going to show you 3 different ways of doing that. The first is to create a virtual exhibition of children's artwork that could be shared with parents using J2Bloggy. Now, J2Bloggy is based on WordPress. It can feel really overwhelming when you start if you aren't familiar with WordPress, as I wasn't not that long ago. I'm just going to give you some really quick instructions as to how to do that. Now, I did this in the language and literacy webinar for getting your children started with creating their own blogs. What I'm going to do today is for this activity, I'm going to create a blog as a teacher, and I'm going to invite children as contributors so that what we're going to create is a class exhibition of work we've been creating. So to set up a new website or blog page, we're going to click on this new button here. We only need to do that once. That's not to add a new blog. This is just to create the page itself. We're going to give it a name. So I'll call it 5W class exhibition. Oh, excuse my spelling. I'm going to add some tags. Now, tags are what allow other people within school to find this blog and this work. So I might give it my class name. I might put art. I might tag some of the children who are in my class, for instance, or some of the types of art that we've been doing. I then have 3 options for privacy. Note that your children will only have 2. They won't have the public facing option. So I can make it private, or I can make it just so that anybody in my school can access it. Children can do both of those things. As a teacher, I can also make it public facing. I'm going to do this for this particular blog because I want to be able to share it with my parents. Obviously, you would need to be aware of your school's data protection and any children who might or might not be able to be have photographs of them shared, for instance. But this allows us to share it with parents. I'm then going to click create, and it's going to auto generate this blog for me. And then going to change just a few things to make this look really nice. So the first thing to take note of is that when you get into this blog, first of all, you're met with some instructions. This confused me the first time I looked at it, but actually it's just a blog post. So we can click edit and we can get rid of that. We could change that to a welcome to our class exhibition, for instance. And worth noting that when we are blogging, we don't save, we either update or we publish. Go back and have a look. We flip between the dashboard and the page itself up here where it says the name of the blog. And all the rest of the editing we're going to do within the dashboard. And here are the things that I would recommend, and you can ignore everything else if you're not confident with WordPress. So the first is where it says appearance. We have themes. So that's the first thing that's going to change, that you can alter the way your blog looks straight away. You can make it look really nice. That might be a nice one for an art show. And underneath where it says themes on the left, we have customize. Here we could change the name of our site. We could change the colors. We could add a header image. That would be really nice for a class exhibition because we could add a picture of our children's artwork here. I'll show you an example of this shortly. The next thing I'm going to want you to do is go where it says users, click add new. This is where we can allow our children to become contributors to this blog. So I can set this up and I can ask my children to blog the work they've been working on. So if I go to my class, choose Harley, you can choose all your students or whoever you want. Where it says role of new user, I'm going to make Harley an editor. Obviously, I'd need to have, this is going to be something you're going to do with your older children. I'd need to have conversations with them about how we need to be really sensible with that privilege and make sure we don't spoil this for anybody else. And click add. So Harley can now blog to this page. I'm going to do one more thing before we start blogging, and that is to go where it says pages. No, it's not. I'm going to go to where it says posts and categories. Now, categories are like your the tabs on your menu bar. So this is where how we can organize the content in our blog post. So two ways you could do this. You could give every child in your class their own category and name each category after them. Or you could do categories for each type of art. So we could say we've been doing self-portraits and add that one. We could add Mondrian, collage. If I now go back up to here and visit site, you can see that those have appeared under the header image there. And when I blog, there'll be nothing there yet because we haven't blogged, but when I blog, they will appear under the relevant categories. So if I go back to the dashboard, the way we blog, the easiest way to blog is to go on J2E5 Lite, which is at the bottom left here. J2E5 Lite is just like J2E5, but slightly altered for blogging. We can therefore, with this open folder button, load any work that's been created in J2E5, or we can create work directly into this page itself. So if I find that collage that I did, there it is, click on it and it will load it onto that page. I could write underneath it, children could write about what they've done. Obviously they'd take more time than this. And when they're ready, they can click publish. When they click publish, now mine's generated a name based on the file that I loaded. I could change that if I wanted to. And there's a little drop down menu to ask which category I want to put it in. So I'll put it in category collage and publish. Again, my children can do this. Harley could do this now. I've made him an admin. I go back to my site and look in collage. There's that picture. Now I've not quite adjusted the size right. So it's entirely possible to get this. So it doesn't have the scroll bars, and I will show you an example of this now. So I'm going to come out of this and show you an art of exhibition I've already created, because again, this is one that we might want to take a bit of time over. Now, I don't have a class, so I've done one for my 2.5-year-old daughter. This is where we view all our blogs. And instead of creating a new one, I can view Rosie's art show. And exactly like I showed you, I have talked to you about, I have changed the header image to a piece of her artwork. And I've added some categories here. So I've done an about the artist. And then I've split my categories based on the work that she's done. And as you can see, just by adjusting the size a little bit, I've managed to get it so that all of her art is in view and it looks like a real little virtual exhibition. and written a little bit about it underneath, and my personal favourite, my daughter's drawing of my auntie. So with some artwork in, these can look really, really lovely, and we can share this URL now with parents if we've made that public facing, so that they can really easily see all the work that their little ones have created. Let's get rid of some of these now. Now, the next way I'm going to look at exhibiting work that's been created elsewhere is to create a presentation in J2E5. Now, the ideas within these are completely interchangeable, but what I've done here is this is a little bit of some other types of art that have been created elsewhere on the computer or videoed. And I've changed the background, and I've added some different videos and some sound. So I will just show you. These things obviously haven't been created in J2E, but again, they can be exhibited here. Good night, sweetheart, well, it's time to go. Good night, sweetheart, well. And on the next page, we have a composition created in GarageBand. And just to show you how I've done that, I'll add one more page. So if I come into edit mode and then click to add a new page at the bottom right, and I'm going to add in a video that's been done doing some video editing. So I've already uploaded this video. I've dragged it from my computer desktop into my files. So I will now find it in my files. And this is, I can simply just drag it onto the page and resize it. If I now go into view mode, you can see that now. This could obviously be shared, could be saved and shared with other colleagues or other classes in school. It could be displayed on a whiteboard. You could even generate a QR code for this presentation that we could share with other people that way. And I'm just going to finish up by showing you something a bit similar, showing you how to do that. So the last thing we're going to do, we're going to look at creating a virtual, an interactive display using QR coding. So what I've created is a poster congratulating my children on a show that they've been doing. So I've put some photographs of that show. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a QR code at the bottom, which is going to link to some videos of that performance. So you can see how we could have done that with the previous presentation too. So I'm going to find in my files that video. Now this is just another J2E5 file with that video loaded up. And if I hover over it, I'm going to click on the little green eye that appears and click QR code. Now, again, being sensitive that you know the permissions that that child has. If I want anybody to be able to view this, I'd need to click publish. So obviously, as long as that was okay, that would allow anybody who scans this QR code now to be taken to that video. So when I've done that, I'm going to save that. There it is. So if I come back to my poster, because I've saved that to my files, I can come to my picture library. I can drag that onto the page, and that should, if you have a device that you'd like to have a scan of that with, take you to that video if you scan it. So you could display that around school, and anybody that scanned that would be able to see those performances from that show. So you've got that interactive element there. And that's about all I have got to show you today. But as always, just a reminder that if you have any questions, obviously we'll have some time for questions in a second. But beyond this webinar, your first port of call will be the help tile on your Launchpad. There's lots of videos and articles, step-by-step instructions there, if there's anything you want to know more about. Beyond that, please do feel free to get in contact. Support at J2E will get you to Sophie, who will be able to answer all of your questions. There is also Just2easy.com, the main company website, which has lots of help on there too. If you're after more ideas, please do feel free to follow us on Twitter or Facebook. Often we get schools sharing with us what they've been doing, so that's good for ideas too. And just a last reminder that there is one more webinar next week. So if you've enjoyed today, please do feel free to book onto next week, and I will have a whole new host of ideas for you there. But now, that's all from me. So if you have any questions, if Sophie, you'd like to let everybody unmute themselves, feel free to ask or pop them in the chat. If you don't want to say anything out loud, that's fine too, and I'll answer the best I can. If you don't have any questions, thank you very much for coming, and we hope to see you again soon.